Yes, guys, I'm Si. Welcome to Ace Podcast Nation. Welcome to the newly crowned Cardiff City podcast, which is called Cardiff City World. Episode number 1, I suppose, you could say. Lots to discuss as we delve in to the mighty Bluebirds and what's the latest at the big club, biggest club in Wales, as they say, the capital. What is going on at Cardiff City? We will discuss that this evening, among other things. If you've got anything in particular you'd like to discuss, then as always, get your questions and stuff in. Please do like a subscribe, all that good stuff helps us out a massive amount. And if you go into the description of this video, there is also a direct link to the soon to be coming Cardiff City World channel, which will feature analysis, podcasts, legends, guests. The whole caboodle is going to be insane. It's going to be the place for Cardiff City content, the place for Cardiff City news. So please do subscribe. It's free. The link is below. Got some interesting things to discuss. I had a message sent to me today by someone who I very much trust, with a bit of background information on like some things that are going on at the club at the moment. Unfortunately, not positive news, but something which I was very surprised at. So I'm gonna look. I hate that kind of in the know or shit. I hate it. I hate everything about it. It's clickbaity bollocks, and it's not me. Anyone who watches the channel and has watched the channel knows that that's not what we're about. I literally steer away from clickbaity bollocks. However, it's a Cardiff City podcast, and we're going to discuss things that are floating about Cardiff City. So we'll discuss that. We'll discuss the transfer market or the lack of movement in the Cardiff City department, I suppose. But with a few players out, maybe there's some good news in there amongst. Reece says, evening first. First things first, what's the news you posted about earlier? Yeah, we'll get to that now. Secondly, how much does one of these bloody lovely jackets cost? These bloody lovely jackets are for sale, and they are $49.99. What can I say? You pay for quality, and one thing I can vouch for is the quality of this garment is 100% beautiful. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. If you want one, get in contact with me. A little bit of other news. I can tell you that 10th of May in Pontypridd is a date that you should keep very, very free and make sure that you're about. There will also be another date you should keep free before that, but just got a few things to work out with that. As always, members of Ace Podcast Nation will get 24 hours early access to tickets for any live events. And you will always get 24 hours early access to make sure you have the opportunity to purchase those tickets. So if you do want to become a member, I think it's money well spent anyway because of the content you get and everything else. It all goes back into the channel. You get members shows, behind the scenes, etc. But you also get 24 hours early access to any live events. Obviously, the main live events that we do are Cardiff City Legend events at the moment. And I know there's several coming very, very soon. I can tell you there's 2 straight away. One in May, one before that as well. It's going to be cracking nights, as they are always. Going to be big crowds for these ones as well, as we take them around the place. We're going to be going to the valleys. We're going to be going down to Barry Way. We're going to be going Cardiff. We're going to be going Bridgend. We're going to spread the love. And like I said, 10th of May, Pontypridd. Make sure you keep the date. If you want to sign up to be a member, patreon.com/Ace Podcast Nation. Okay, let me read you a message which I received this morning. Obviously, I'm not going to say who it's from because I'm not that guy. But what I can tell you is I would trust this person, and they've got no reason to lie. I said, I had a conversation this morning. All is not well at Cardiff. Players and manager at loggerheads, and it looks like Kiefer Moore may be going elsewhere. And that's the gist of it. So if we break that down, one of the things which I think has got Cardiff through from the start of the season to now with a fairly small squad, with big players like Aaron Ramsey missing, is the togetherness, is the team spirit, and we've had to dig out some results. And there's been some good performances, particularly away from home, in and around that. So I found it incredibly deflating to hear murmurings of discontent in that squad, discontent with the manager. But I think when you look at things overall, that kind of rumor holds a bit of, there's something to it, I think, or certainly I could understand if there was something to it, it would add up, certainly on the pitch. I've mentioned on my shows and my channel several times in probably the last month or two that certain players seem to have stinking attitude, is the way I described it, particularly like in that FA Cup game. I thought there was certain players who were disgraceful in the way they went about it. Like there was points where Ruben Colwell was pressing on his own, and the wingers and the people around him were just like stood there watching. And it's just like, one of the other things I've heard is that one of the other things I've noticed, should I say, sorry, is I've said this multiple times, is when Bowler came to us, I thought he looked sharp, he looked fit, he looked exciting, and he was working hard. Everything about him looked like a player who wanted to be here. When he came back from his injury, I felt like his attitude had changed. There was a lot of moaning, a lot of arms flailing around. Obviously, there's other players, Robinson fell out with the manager right back at the start of the season. Looked like that was a thing of the past. Has that reared its head? I don't know. And I don't know the gists and the ins and outs of it. All I know is that supposedly all is not well. But what I would also say is, if you speak to any ex-footballer, not just Cardiff ones, but any ex-footballers, is every week at a football club, there is disagreements, there is arguments, and there is fights. I think Jay Bothroyd said it recently. There's fights every other week at football clubs between players and managers and the rest of it. It's just one of those things. But football players are, particularly when things are going well, they're creatures of habits. And I think what you've got to understand is, like, I just saw someone's put, Matt, but do you think it stems back to when Alnwick was dropped? I wouldn't be surprised if that caused a bit of unrest, a bit of frustration, because Alnwick was banging form. He was performing in every metric that you want a goalkeeper to perform. He was performing in, week out. Yeah, I will do that now, Slugger Road Blues. So effectively, he was good. He was being good on the ball. He was good shot stopping. His distribution, everything was good. So I don't understand, and I think most people agreed, didn't understand why he got dropped. If you're that back five, that back four has been the same all season when they're all available and fit. With the keeper, they looked so solid. And then all of a sudden, the keeper was dropped, seemingly for no reason. Look, I think we all agreed, like if it was a cup game, stuff like that, you can understand the rotation of the keeper, fine. But when it leaked into the league game, I could understand why that would cause an issue. Like, just from being around, in just grassroots football teams, if you've got like a setback for and a keeper, and if things are going well, and then suddenly one of those players is dropped inexplicably and things start to take a turn, players will ask questions, and obviously there's, like I said before, at football clubs there is always fights and arguments and the rest of it. It's part and parcel of being in a changing room. But one of the things which I felt had dragged Cardiff through was the team spirit, the togetherness of that squad. It was quite a small squad, and it felt like we were digging out results again. I think the away performances have been really, really good. So to hear today, and I'll repeat the message that I received, to hear that about the behind the scenes, because when I said to someone earlier, behind the scenes is not great, everyone assumed transfers, etc. The board, which rightly have been criticised in the past. I've been critical of them, the lack of planning, etc., etc. So I think it's surprising to hear that there's potentially issues behind the scenes with the playing squad and the manager. Does it stem back also to the fact that the the manager's contract's out in the summer. How can anyone feel settled? You know, whether even I take out the loan players, but the players who the managers pick in, week out, how can anyone feel settled? Because the manager could be gone in the summer. It's very, very difficult. So just for the latecomers, because I can see there's a lot of people in there watching live, I just want to go back and I'll repeat what I said, and I'll repeat what I've said continually since I started Ace Podcast Nation. I'm not about clickbait and shit. I hate the in the know crap and all that sort of stuff. I hate it. It's not about me. And it's probably been to my detriment that I won't clickbait clips and headlines and the rest of it. But I was sent a message by someone this morning who I trust implicitly. They had no reason to lie to me. They get no benefit out of it. And they, you know, it is what it is. And it says, had a conversation this morning. All is not well at Cardiff City. Some players and the manager at loggerheads. And it looks like Kiefer Moore would like to go elsewhere. So, on the Kiefer Moore bet, I think everyone and their dog kind of expecting Kiefer Moore to come. We had Darren Whitcup on the channel a couple of times, and he said everything that he had heard is that Kiefer Moore wants to come to Cardiff. He wants to play in front of the fans. That has been the case since the summer. I also had heard from a few different people, like through the grapevine, that he had contacted Cardiff, not the other way around, to come back. So if he's not going to come to Cardiff, I would say that there's one of two reasons. One, maybe he doesn't want a permanent move, or he wants a loan and the club want a permanent move, or vice versa, like whichever, and they can't come to an agreement on that. I could understand Cardiff not really wanting to use a loan move maybe on him because they've just sent a couple of loan players back. There's rumours of other players they want on loan. And maybe if you're limited in the loan choices, they might want him permanently, or it could be, you know, the other way around. I don't know. The other option, I suppose, would be is if a bigger club or a Premier League club has come in and sort of given him a nod to say, we'd like to bring you in. Who knows? It's one of those things. But like, that's taken a turn in the last 7 days. Because when did we have Darren on? Was it 7 days ago? 6 days ago? Very, very recently, we had Darren Whitcup on. And Darren Whitcomb, even at that point, said everything he'd heard was that Cardiff, Kiefer Moore wanted Cardiff City. Cardiff City wanted Kiefer Moore. It was a case of Cardiff needed to balance the books, get a couple of players out, make room. Bournemouth needed to get a replacement in. Maybe that's still the case. Who knows? But the Kiefer Moore one is weird. I want to go to some of the comments. Reese in the comments says, my issue is the silence from the club. If they'd come out and said, hey, guys, we haven't got any cash to spend. We're going to back Errol as best we can, but we're going to look to strengthen in the summer. I'd be okay. And I think that's the thing, right? Everybody understands that Cardiff are not going to go and blow. You know, as much as I joked and said I would love to get Jordan James, we all knew that was never going to happen. Cardiff were never going to go to Birmingham and say, here's 5 million, we want Jordan James. Here's 5 million to Bournemouth, we want Kiefer Moore. It's never going to happen. They haven't got that money. But I think what we wanted and what we were led to believe is that Cardiff, now being able to spend some money, were going to back the manager as best they could. However, with transfers, and Lyndon and Jones has just taken the words right out of my mouth, there's still 2 weeks to do a transfer window left. And look, we all would love to have had transfers in on the 2nd and 3rd of January. It doesn't work like that. It just doesn't. These deals take time. We also had to get players out and send some loan players back, and we might have probably loan a couple out of the youngsters as well. It does take time to get the deals done. Do I think Cardiff City are the most organised club in terms of planning? Of course I don't. I'm not going to go back on what I've said previously. One of my biggest criticisms of Cardiff City as a club overall has been the lack of foresight, the lack of planning. How many times, like even when we've sacked managers and we've sacked the manager, we sacked Morrison, no one really knows the reason now, still. And I'm not saying that he shouldn't have been sacked because I don't know what the reason was. But we sacked Morrison with no plan. We shoot ourselves in the foot a lot with the lack of planning. Like, we all knew that the embargo was lifted come January. So I would have liked to think that there was a lot of planning. You'd like to think that there was some conversations, at least, to put things in place. And now it feels like maybe that's not the case. But all is not lost. There's 2 weeks to go in the transfer window, and I believe that you can get a lot done in 2 weeks. Some of the comments which the managers made fairly recently, I think it was last week, I'm sure I read somewhere that he said there was a couple of deals which weren't too far off. And I mean, if that's the case, they're still not far off, unless we've missed out on those players. Of course, it's frustrating. Cardiff City fans were negative. We're conditioned to be negative, unfortunately. And I prefer not to be negative where possible. Alex D says the club are obviously trying to balance the books for FFP, getting rid of a few first. And he says he wouldn't mind seeing the back of Callum Robinson. So obviously, Darren Whitcomb, who we had on a couple of times so far, has said himself that he thought that Robinson was probably going to go. He's a high earner. He fell out with a manager earlier in the season. His wages are massive, apparently. So it makes sense for him to maybe move out. My one complaint with Callum Robinson from a football point of view is I want to see him through the middle as a number 9. I think that's his best position. I think he's the best finisher at the football club at the moment. And we keep playing him in this number 10. And I would argue now that if the choice is between Robinson and Colwell would probably get the nod. I think Colwell's attitude, his demeanour, his work rate is greater than Robinson. And I also believe that he's shown more creativity when he's been given a run in the team. So I actually believe that if I was going to get rid of a high earner within the squad, Robinson is probably a favourite. That's just my opinion, though. Ethan says, same as Neil Harris, really. It was a few bad performances, but no real reason to sack him. There's just no communication, is it, Simon? Yeah, it's the lack of communication from the football club is incredibly frustrating. And look, I was no Neil Harris fan. I don't think that was any secret. I didn't want him in the first place. But once he's here, you've got to back him. And the communication is not a strong point of Cardiff City. We did get a statement through the Cardiff City Trust, which I want to kind of discuss a little bit. Cardiff City Supporters Trust says fans can be assured that the potential new signings at the Championship club are at an advanced stage. After talks with senior sources at the club, the Trust chair, Keith Morgan, issued a statement last night following issues raised by Bluebirds fans on social media. The club's directors are working in close cooperation and agreement with the manager, the recruitment team, to bring in new players either on loan or permanently, and a number of potential deals are at an advanced stage. And I mean, let's be honest, right? As Lyndon says in the chat there, a lot of transfers in January get done in the final week. Is that ideal? Of course it's not. Would we all love to have transfers come in, straight in first week of January? Look how organised we are. Just doesn't happen. There's a lot of negotiations and wheeling and dealing, and it's Jamie says FFP is scaring some clubs. We've saw the mismanagement from the EFL, and now they're deducting points. I think that's an absolutely phenomenal point, mate. I think when you look at some of the big clubs in the Premier League as well, getting docked points, when you look at, Derby and the likes of getting docked in the EFL, I think clubs are petrified to go anywhere close to those sort of the upper echelons of those limits. And it's got to be a long-term plan financially. Cardiff have really flirted with things like administration and whatnot over the years. We all know the stories and of the different owners and the financial problems. None of us want to go back to that. But I think, as I think it was Reece who said earlier on, if the club had communicated in December or early January, even as late as that, to the fans and just said, we're going to do our best to back the manager. We're going to, do everything we can to strengthen the squad. We want this manager to stay. He's the long-term plan, etc., etc. But we are bound by FFP. We do have some monetary issues, etc. I think most fans understand that anyway, but it's the communication thing which I think lets us down a lot. It's only one game. Lyndon says we've only had one game until the end of the window. Yeah, it's a weird window the way they've done it this year, like the lack of games, but maybe that could be a bonus and help us get some deals over the line. My message as a fan, as a Cardiff City fan, right, which is what I am, it's what I've always been and what I always will be, is look, right, the last 2 years we've flirted with relegation, and there was a point last year where I thought we were going down. Lamucci came in, got the team steady, and we kind of stayed up. At the start of the season, when we had this manager come in, we all knew very little about him. And I said, look, let him build his team. Get behind him. Let's try and get a top half finish this year. Then next year, build for a playoff push. And if that doesn't work, then we build and we try and really push on for your automatics and a real big push in the third year. But you have to back the manager on and off the pitch. You have to buy into it. He has to be your guy. And you have to get everything in place throughout the football club to give him time to build his squad. You've got to remember, when you're dealing in loans and frees, you are effectively bringing in players which other clubs do not want. And that's all we've been able to bring in. So we are reliant on what we already had, which I think you could argue he's got more of a tune out of some of those players than previous managers, and loans, which where teams it's either young players who need game time or players who are surplus to requirements at their parent club, and then frees for players who are out of contract. So if you're never going to get that kind of unbelievable squad straight away, because you're going to have players there that the manager probably doesn't want. You're going to have players coming in who, all right, they're doing a job, but they might not be as good as what the manager really would like. But he was limited because he didn't have no money to spend. So we have to let him build. The problem is he could go in the summer because he hasn't got a new contract. So how do you attract new players if the manager's not tied down? It's very problematic for me. I think first and foremost, I'd like to see the manager sign a new contract, and then I think we can really build. But I also understand that there's some fans who are not convinced by the manager. I think he's done a great job with what he's got. And if you cast your mind back again, last year or two, it's been painful. I think our away performances this year have been spot on the majority of the time. The home performances, I think, yeah, I can see why people are frustrated. I think we should be a bit more attacking from home. I felt like, for instance, Ruben Corwell should have got his chance to start some games a bit earlier in the season at home, because when he was having his cameos off the bench and when he was playing in the EFL Cup, he was doing bits, like he was scoring goals, he was getting assists. So when we had home games, particularly in those kind of games which you're targeting to win, get him in there, create something, play some attacking football. You don't have to play the same type of football and tactics every single game. Every opponent is different. Every situation is different. Every squad of players each week is probably different in terms of availability and things like that. But for me, we've got to build, and we've got to back the manager, let him build his squad. Like, he hasn't had one window yet where he can sign players. Let's give him this window. Let's give him next summer. And my message to Cardiff City fans, most of all, is I know it's frustrating. I know that some of the performances have been real lackluster and piss poor. But get behind the manager and get behind the team, because booing and groaning and moaning and the rest of it doesn't make the players suddenly think, oh, bloody hell, we need to start playing. It just creates more anxiety. What would get these players playing or giving that extra 1%, that extra bit of changing their mentality and playing for the badge when they're tired and they're injured and running through a wall for the manager, running through the wall for the club, is creating a phenomenal atmosphere in the ground, chanting, getting behind the team no matter what. 2-0 down to Leeds, don't worry about it. We'll never stop supporting the team. That's the Cardiff City which I grew up with. And I don't see that as much now. maybe social media has killed it a bit, where everyone's got like an instant opinion. I really don't know what it is, but like I'd like to see the fans really rally behind the manager and the team at the moment, and kind of push them on. Where we all know we need players, we all know this squad needs to be strengthened, but if we can get them over the line to the end of January and the club can get a few players in, it's going to be interesting. Jamie, again, another good point made. Plymouth have got a number of new signings and they'll be active at Saturday, so we have to be much better. 100%, I agree with that. I filmed my preview actually for the Plymouth game earlier today, and that was one of the things I mentioned. They brought in Gyabi in the middle of the park, got that done early in January on loan. He's a real player. He's got real athleticism in the middle of the park, creates a lot. He's very quick. So Cardiff have got to find a way. They've got to find a way to play and to play well, because at the moment they haven't been playing well. I don't like this reverting back to the three almost holding midfielders and having Siopis, Rawls and Wintle. I don't think it works. I think it coincided with our poor form back before Christmas, and then when he changed it back, we did look more creative and we looked better. So for me, I want us at the moment, as it stands, I want to see Corwell in the 10. I want to see either Grant or I want to see Robinson at the number 9. And I want to try and keep our away performances from a defensive point of view as they've been, and then try and hit teams on the break through the transition. When we win the ball, have some pacey players up front, which we can really damage teams, because we've got pace there. I just think maybe they're in the wrong positions. But I think we have to get the ball into the Colwell's feet, into the wingers have got to be high and wide when we win the ball back. The thing with Plymouth is Plymouth score goals, but they also concede goals. So if Cardiff can keep a clean sheet for 60, 70 minutes, I would back us to go and win the game, because Plymouth will concede. But like I say, they do score goals, and they play good football. They've got some players in, and Cardiff, as we stand, do not have any players in. Do I think we'll get any players in before Saturday? I mean, I'm hopeful, but it's difficult. I'm going to go to some of the comments. Ethan says, LMO, we never expected to be around the playoffs. Why can't Tan back him now? Now we are here, and go for it, Simon. Tan's got the money. People think he doesn't, but he's tight. That's the issue. So there's two aspects to that, Ethan, is we've been burnt gambling before, in terms of, I understand the kind of point you're making, that we're up and around the playoffs, so let's invest in the manager, invest in the squad, and try and get up this year. I don't think the club is financially, squad-wise, just generally, I don't think we're ready for promotion, and I think it would be too early. But, you know, you never turn down promotion, the finance and everything which goes with it. Vincent Tan has money, we know this, but there is financial fair play. Gone are the days where the owner can just pump in millions, billions, and just spend it on players and whatnot. You can't do that anymore. It has to be balanced with wages and profit and the rest of it, unfortunately. But no, I don't disagree with you, mate, either, though. I would like to see them invest in the squad and back the manager. Reese says, I can understand why Robinson isn't happy and is always angry. He's a number 9. He's been played out of position. He's a poacher, and he's asked to do the defensive side, and then he gets publicly criticised. Yeah, I don't disagree at all with that, Reese. Like I said, I think right at the start of the season, in pre-season, I really believe that Callum Robinson is our best finisher. He's the best finisher at the football club. He's got pace. He's got the ability to beat a man, and he has got that, creative side to him to get assists and things like that. But he's predominantly been played at number 10. And I actually think if you're not going to play him through the middle as a number 9, all right, if that's not you, play him off the left, because I think he could do some damage there. I think Carlin Grant probably prefers to play through the middle as well. Josh says, cast your mind back 1 year, at least we're not in a relegation scrap. How quickly people forget. 100%, mate. Sloper Road, did you realise that Kiefer Moore was on 40 grand a week at Bournemouth? I absolutely did not realise he was on that much money. And maybe that's the hold-up. Maybe Bournemouth want him off the books permanently. Cardiff can't afford 40 grand a week, so they want some kind of split. And maybe that's the hold-up. And then another club who can't afford it has come in. 40 grand is insane. But, can't fault him. If he got offered that, well, you take it. Reese says, my message, be open with the fans. Just be honest. I don't like Tan. I can never forgive him for the rebrand. It killed off part of my love for football, and I don't like or trust Dalman, but communicate. Don't disagree with anything you've said there, mate, really. The rebrand damaged a lot of people's relationship with the club and with football, and there's just no way that you could do it. Rob says, wouldn't any of that board put my bins out whilst I'm on holiday, let alone run a football club? Wouldn't trust them. Sorry, he says. Jamie Anderson says, there has to be a long-term plan. Unfortunately, we're very quick to sack and not back managers. 100%, mate. This has been my problem with the last few managers. You look at Neil Harris, didn't have a plan after we sacked him. You look at Lamucci, by all accounts, it looked like he wanted to stay, and then all of a sudden he's gone. It does look maybe like they wanted Baloo for a while, or at least Mehmet Dalman wanted Baloo for a while. So it was a case of like they finally got their man, but I'm not sure about that so much. Even Morris, like the Morrison one is the one that sticks out for me. All right, he rubbed people up the wrong way, and some people liked him, some people didn't. He was doing all right on the football pitch. All of a sudden, he's sacked out of the blue with no plan. Like, it wasn't like he was sacked out of the blue because, manager X had become available and we need that manager. He's who we want. So, sorry, Morrison's got to go. No one knows why Morrison was sacked still, which goes back to communication. And the lack of long-term planning is what always, always, always damages Cardiff City. You look at this transfer window, I go back to what I said 10 minutes ago. We all knew that the embargo was lifted. We all hoped that there was a plan and that we'd hit the ground running in the transfer window at the start of January. And it doesn't feel like we have. But if you take on face value what the club has said through the Cardiff City Supporters Trust, that there's several deals on at an advanced stage, maybe we're going to drop, bring in 2 or 3 all at the same time. And that strengthens the squad. We've got to strengthen this squad, or I think the season is going to... The problem with the thing with the Championship, as we all know, we all watched Championship for years, is Cardiff City could go win 5 games on the bounce and be right up there in the playoffs and have a great, what a season. But we could also lose 5 on the bounce and all of a sudden be in a relegation scrap. It's a thin line. You have to pick up points as you go in, because anyone could beat anyone in this league, and a few bad results and you are back in the mire. We're not safe. All right, we feel we're comfortable and we don't feel like we're in a relegation scrap. But let's have a look at some of the teams behind us. You've got Bristol City, Swansea City, Millwall, Stoke, Blackburn immediately behind us. Blackburn's form is terrible. Stoke haven't lost for 5 games, only won 2 though. Millwall have won 3 of the last 5. The Jacks have won a couple, drawn a couple, lost 1 of the last 5. And Bristol have lost the last 2, but before that they'd won a couple and drawn 1. So if those teams hit a bit of form and we drop form, we're going to be right down there. We're not that far off. We're only 10 points off Huddersfield in 21st, 11 points. So I know that sounds a lot, but like a bad run and you'll be down there real quick. So again, I say we have to strengthen this football club. Just going back to the start of the show, 10th of May in Pontypridd, we'll be announcing the City Legends event for that date. Should be next week, we'll be announcing it. We also have another one in a different area, which will probably be end of February, start of March, but we're just working out some logistics of that one. As always, members of Ace Podcast Nation, patreon.com/Ace Podcast Nation. Price of a bag of chips a month You get exclusive content behind the scenes, and you get 24 hours early access to tickets to live events. The 3 we did before Christmas were absolutely phenomenal events, and they 100% good feedback. And these ones are going to be as good, if not better, as we take it to the Valleys, to Barry, to Bridgend. We're going all around the place. I'm super excited for that one in May. I can talk about that one a bit more because it's all in place and everything's ready. Just waiting to announce it. I'm super excited for it. Super excited. And people will understand why once it comes out. But from a personal point of view, I am so excited by it. So get involved. Make sure you come join us. Come say hello. Have your photos with the city legend. Ask them questions. It's a great night. Real good night there. So 10th of May. Keep it date free. Pontypridd, City Legends. Let's go. Let's have a look. Jared Thomas says, we're 3 points off the playoffs is nothing short of a miracle, in my opinion. Results have curtailed since the start of December. What else has to be expected? Doesn't he have a 2-year extension as an option? I'm not sure on the extension part of that, Mitt. I agree with you. It's nothing short of a miracle. I think to be 13th in the league after 27 games is phenomenal. And what we really would like to see now is the squad strengthened. If the squad strengthens, I'd be happy if we just, are there or thereabouts for the playoffs. I don't think we're ready for promotion on or off the pitch, but I'd like to see us give it a go. I'd like to see how good we can, how far can this manager take us in his first season? Let's keep building. Let's get behind him. Let's have a look. Lyndon says, surely a Premier League club would allow one of their younger players to join us on loan to get playing time for a team who could reach the playoffs. 100%, mate. And there's some quality young players up in that Premier League in some of those squads, some real quality. It's just whether you've got the contacts, you've got the scouting network and stuff to find them. There's some real quality under 23s in the Premier League, some proper quality you would absolutely bang in the Championship. It would be good for their careers, good for us. Let's have a look what else we could see. Jamie says, we had worse financial troubles when Steve was in charge and he still signed Doyle, Dramer and Giles. God, can you imagine adding them 3 to this squad now? They all strengthen the squad. It's all about ambition and effort. Yeah, 100%. But you don't have to go and spend millions to strengthen this squad. I stand by what I said before. They don't have to go and spend 10 million to make this squad better. They just have to identify the right players. We all know what system we play in. We all know what system we're best in. So identify the players. And this is what I don't understand, right? Is our scouting network really bad? Or are our scouts identifying players? The transfer committee is signing off on them, and then the owner is curtailing them. I'm sure, say, Jamie, you just made that comment, right, mate? I'm sure if I said to you, mate, right, we've only got a maximum of 3 million to spend on transfers. Go and find me 3 players that you think will make our squad better, whether it's loans, whether it's cheap deals, whatever it is. And I'm sure you could identify a few players straight away on loan from the Premier League or whatever it would be. So why can a professional football club not do that? Seemingly not do that? Because look, we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. So, and certainly from what we talked about earlier, I was shocked to hear that there's supposed disharmony within the squad. And I was very shocked to hear that. Kyle Rogers says, to go forward, we need Vincent Tan gone. I find it very difficult to disagree with that, Kyle. Anyone who has watched any of my content or knows me personally knows that my feelings towards that man are not full of love. Am I grateful for him reversing his mistake? Yeah, I suppose. Am I grateful for some of the things and the money that he's put into the club to keep us running? Yes. But I do wonder whether his time is up now and maybe it's time for some fresh impetus. But it's not as easy as that because, like, not everyone's got the money required to run a football club the size of Cardiff City. Kyle also says the stadium is absolutely dead now. It's awful. Yeah, the atmosphere, I think, is a big problem. I think the atmosphere in the stadium is poor. I think the anxiety, the negativity, and the groans and moans, I think, is affecting the players. And I think that's why you see better performances away from home this season. And I'm not blaming that all on the fans. I think there's a responsibility on the football team to entertain the fans as well. You can't just expect the fans to just rock up every week and, like, have the place bouncing if you're playing very either possession-based football with no creativity at the end of it. Because as I've said many times, possession-based football doesn't necessarily equal boring if it's done right. There's a reason for possession-based football is to beat the press. But if you don't do it effectively, which we haven't at times for a variety of reasons, then of course that becomes an issue. And then the fans get on the players' backs and stuff like this. It's got to be a two-way street. I wish we'd be a bit more attacking at home. Like, I really think, like, for instance, the Birmingham game, I felt like Birmingham were there for the taking. Rooney was struggling as a coach, and we gave them far too much respect. They came to our gaff, and we let them play into the game. And it's just really, 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 really. So, yeah, I just think it's frustrating. If you've got any questions, get them in. I'll be dropping the Plymouth preview Friday afternoon, I think, where I sort of break it all down. If you haven't already, guys, please go to youtube.com/@CardifCityWorld. Please do subscribe for it. It's free. It's going to be launching soon with the 2-part Michael Chopra podcast. Also got a podcast with Mark Bonner coming, among many other things. If you'd like to contribute to the channel, whether behind the camera or on the camera, and help us make content around Cardiff City, then get in touch with us. You can DM me, you can DM the channel, or you can email us at acenetworkcontact@gmail.com. Want to make it the Cardiff City fan channel featuring, like, the long-term plan is to have some form of Cardiff City content coming out every single day, from analysis to previews, podcast interviews, like media, journalists, whatever it may be, just everyday Cardiff City stuff, news, the rest of it. Ethan says, we never expected to be around the playoffs, so why not go for it? Why can't Tan back the manager, considering he's got us here? The man is very tight. I don't disagree with you, mate. Obviously there's a limit because of financial fair play, but very frustrating, to say the least. Jamie says, unfortunately, we were lucky to draw on Boxing Day. Plymouth could have and should have won. Yeah, again, don't disagree with that whatsoever, mate. And I think Plymouth are dangerous because they score goals, which has been a problem for Cardiff. My one saving grace, or my one hope for Cardiff in the Plymouth game, is away from home particularly. We've been pretty solid against most teams and difficult to break down. If we keep a clean sheet, I fancy us to pinch it, but because Plymouth just defensively are a bit all over the shop. They concede a lot of goals, but they score a lot of goals as well. So it's interesting. Steve Wiggins, welcome, my friend. He says, what do I make of the Leeds game? Oh, where to start, mate? Where to start? I thought the mentality was all wrong from the players. The atmosphere was awful. Considering Leeds are kind of one of our historically, big rivals, there's a lot of history there. The atmosphere was awful, dreadful, really bad. But I think, look, one of the problems for me straight away is when you see that lineup home to Leeds, and you see that lineup with 3 holding midfielders, you just groan, because it's one of two things, isn't it? You're either playing that flat 4-3-3, which has absolutely not worked for Cardiff City this year and has caused us loads of issues and made us as blunt can be, creatively speaking. Or you're playing Wintle as a number 10, which again categorically has not worked. And again, I feel sorry for Ruben Corwell because I really don't know what he has to do to maintain his place in the team. Like, he had the last league game he started was his best game for Cardiff City. Created, looking sharp, looking good. Hasn't started a game in the league since. There's a few players who I think have got a poor attitude, shall we say. I don't see the point in playing Atete up front at the moment. He had that little purple patch where he scored some goals and he looked sharp again. But there's something going on. I don't know whether it's a physical thing and he struggles with the league, or whether his attitude's not right. Bowler, I've discussed already. I think there's something going on there because since he came back from his injury, his attitude has been pretty poor. I'd like to see Karlan Grant through the middle. If we're not going to play Robinson as the number 9, I would like to see Karlan Grant. So say for this Leeds game, right? When the fans see that lineup, okay, the back 5 picks itself fine. And then you see Wintle, Siopis, Rawls. You know straight away we're not going to create anything. So is that we're not trying to create anything, but we're just trying to keep it 0-0 and we're just going to try and scrounge a draw? Well, we lost 3-0. I'd rather have a goal and have an end-to-end game with Leeds and we lose 6-3. At least the fans are entertained, the atmosphere will be good, and it'll be like fans come away saying, what a game. And I get maybe that's not what everyone else would like, but like I'd rather that, because I just thought we were absolutely embarrassing. I thought the attitude, mentality, the thought, we just went in so negatively. If I was picking that team for the Leeds game, I would have gone Siopis and Rawls as a 2. I would have gone Colwell at number 10. I would have gone probably would have gone with Tanner or off the left. I would have gone Grant through the middle and Bowler off the right. And I would have told Tanner and Bowler, you have to tuck in when we lose possession to try and make it, 2 banks of 4. Colwell as well drops in. So you have like a 4-4-1-1. We're out of possession. And then as soon as we get the ball in the transition, Colwell's dropping in to look for the ball in the pockets of space. The wingers are high and wide, and you try and hit him on the break, and you try and get Karlan Grant in behind. Leeds play a high line. So why did we not try and exploit that? But you're never going to exploit anything with those 3 midfielders. And look, it's no disrespect to those 3 players. Siopis started like a house on fire. I think the weight load of trying to be a holding midfielder, a box-to-box midfielder, and the creator is weighing on him. He needs someone next to him who can pass through the lines like Joe Rawls, but he's probably a bit more robust like Ryan Wintle. Hence why if I had my choice of picking a midfielder from anywhere in the Championship, which I could have, I wanted Jordan James. But we were never gonna happen. But it was a wishful thinking on my part. Look, but that's what I thought of the Leeds game, mate. I just thought it was very negative even before the game kicked off. Let's have a look. Reese says, I don't like Tan. I'll never forget it. Never forgive him. One thing I will say is he has splashed a lot of cash over his time at the club. We've just bought piss poor. Can you imagine what we're playing? I can imagine we're paying all the wages for the loan players. Not sure about that, the loan bit, but I agree he has spent money. We just spent it poorly. And so I'll ask the question again: is that the scouting? Is that the people in place on the transfer committee? Like something's disjointed and something's not quite clicking off the field. Josh says it's a transitional season for me. Hopefully you get 3 or 4 in now to help build for next season. Yeah, 100% agree with that, mate. Top half finish, happy days for me. Would I like to see us try and push on for the playoffs? Yes, and I believe that if we get the right 3 or 4 players in January, we have a squad which can be in the playoff conversation. Not saying that we can get to the playoffs or get promoted, but I don't think we're like 3 or 4 of the right players. That I should clarify. Matt says we don't need to spend big on loads. Younger players to develop now, push for next season. But I think you can have a mix of that. Like you can have a mix of blood in some of these youngsters. Look into next year. Let's have a look there. Reese says Sabri was strange. Dalman came out and said Sabri met Tan. Talks were great. Good news should be announced soon. And then Sabri walks. Yeah, and again, it comes down to planning, mate. I don't know what's going on with it. Kyle says if we don't back the manager and he decides to leave, I'll be calling out Tan every game. Yeah, exactly that, mate. Joe Oliver says, no disrespect, Simon. What evidence do you have for your claims? I assume you're referring to what I said, like right at the start. I don't have any evidence, mate. It's just what I was told. It's a Cardiff City show. We talk about rumours and stuff like that. I did say at the start, like the person who told me has got no reason really to make it up or lie. He doesn't benefit from it. It is what it is. I found it really deflating to hear. I hope it's not true. I really, really hope it's not true. Just one of them things, you know. I'm not going to not talk about it. We talk about Cardiff City on this show. We talk about the ins and outs, and we give opinions and we give views. I try and separate like my opinion and my views to different things. But I get it, mate. Like I said right at the start of the show, I hate the clickbaity in the know bollocks. I hate it. It's something I've steered away from for the last couple of years of doing like this sort of stuff. There's been podcasts which I've done, which I could, click certain things, or you could take stuff out of context, and I probably would have benefited me in terms of views and subscribers. But it's not my style. I'm not interested in it at all. But I got told something, and I just thought we'd discuss it. That's it. I hope that kind of addresses what you meant. If you weren't referring to that, then I'm not sure what you were referring to. So clarify, and I'll try and address it, mate. I'm not trying to avoid anything. Ethan says this window feels very unprepared for the club, considering how long we've waited for the embargo to end. Yeah, it does feel like that, mate. But what I would say is these deals don't happen overnight, and technically, we weren't allowed to speak to anyone until the embargo was lifted. So I suppose I know there's ways around it and stuff like that, but I guess technically until that embargo was lifted, we weren't able to work on any deals. Jamie says, still keep going, keep behind the lads. Great away followings for Plymouth and Watford. Yeah, 100%, mate. And like I said, right, that's my overriding message to any Cardiff City fan, including myself, is get behind the boys, get behind the manager, get behind the team. Try and create the best atmospheres possible, whether home or away, and try and get these players over the line. And whether we get players in or we don't get players in, if there's issues in the squad or there's not issues in the squad, let's get behind the manager, let's get behind the team. And no matter what happens, let's just keep doing that, because I think that's the most important thing. That's our job as fans. Last couple of comments then before I wrap up. I'm hoping Joe's going to come back to me just to clarify if that's what he was referring to. This window feels very unprepared. No, I read that one. Reese says, under Morrison, we know when approaching players, they did PowerPoints on what they wanted, what was expected. I wonder if the club's approach has changed now. Yeah, I guess all managers, I would assume, would have different ways to prepare for games and stuff. I think most teams, mate, have like an analysts and stuff who will, give packets on, like I know, or certainly at Premier League level, I know, and even in academies, if you're playing a team, they'll give you a packet on the player that you're most likely to be up against and clips, and they'll go through them. I think most professional clubs now in the Championship and Premier League would do that. I would think so. And if they're not, I'd probably want to know why, because it's, we can do that as fans, and it's not difficult. Considering how poor we've been and our form is, to be 3 points off the playoff, does that make the league this year feel strong or weak? I just think the Championship is what it's always been. Anyone can beat anyone. and a bad run can set you back down into a relegation battle, and a good run, you can be up around the playoffs quite quickly, obviously depending on what results go your way elsewhere. Dramer, Doyle, Hugel, Uche all came in January, and it saved our season. 100%, mate. Byron Griffiths says Kiefer Moore is signing, mate. Yeah, I hope so, mate. I really do. And like everything which I've read, I had heard since the summer, I messaged Reese, who was in the chat just after the transfer window closed in the summer, and said, like, Kiefer Moore was so close. It was literally because the Bournemouth replacement fell through at the last minute. Like, I was convinced that Kiefer Moore was coming then. And we've had, Darren Whitcup's been on the channel twice now in the last month or so, and he's said the same thing, that everything he's heard is Kiefer Moore's coming. So hopefully, really hope he did. It could change our season. Hey, Jaden, hope you're well, mate. Jaden says Axel's on his way. Joey Leah says, Jamo Leah, he does what he wants. Ethan says, I'm surprised it's not really any outgoings, considering we need to free up space for wages. Yeah, we sent a couple back, didn't we, on loan? A couple of the loan players back. I'm surprised that there hasn't been maybe like your Rinamotos and your Sawyers. I thought might move on. I think there's still a chance Robertson could be going. Let's have a look. Alex says, when's Dalman next on, mate? I'm hoping to get him on in the next month or so. Just waiting to hear back on the ins and outs and stuff. But he normally comes on about this time of year. He did come on, I believe. Someone might be able to remind me. I'm sure he came on in January the last time, because I remember we were talking about a potential Bale deal. So I don't know, mate. I am in the process of trying to sort it out, though, mate. And obviously, when he does, you can ask questions, and I'll put them to him as long as they're done in a respectful way. I'll ask anything. And one thing I'll say, whatever your view of him is, whenever he's come on my show, which I think is 3 or 4 times now, he does it like once a year. Whenever he comes on, the first time I had him on, I asked him, I said, would you rather do a pre-record or a live? He said live. I said, do you want me to screen the questions? Is there anything which you don't want me to ask you about? Because that's the professional thing to do. And he said, no, ask me anything, no matter what. So the only rule I've got is that if it's asked in a respectful way, like there was one guy in here previously who was like giving him a shit, like, calling him names and then expecting his question to be answered in the same sentence. It's like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, have a bit of class about yourself. Matt says, I missed a bit about squad disharmony. What happened? So basically all it was is that there was a rumor, or whatever you want to call it. Someone had texted me this morning, who I trust, and said that there was, I've forgotten the wording, but basically there was some disagreements going on, loggerheads between some players and manager, and it was causing some issues. And it is what it is. What I would remind everyone of is, I say that's true. That's no different to every single football club. Every week there's fights and arguments and all sorts. If it's a constant thing where it's causing an atmosphere, then that's an issue. Ethan says, when Dalman comes on, can you suggest ways to improve the atmosphere and see if they're looking into it, mate? I will try to remember, mate. It is something which I want to ask him about, because one of the big things that I've always been kind of critical of since we went to the new stadium is having the family stand next to the away fans straight away dimmed the atmosphere in the ground. It just did. Matt C says, spot on, Si. The football at home over the previous couple of months has been dreadful. I don't know what I was spot on about, but I appreciate you. I appreciate everyone who's tuned in. Done some big numbers tonight on Twitter and YouTube and stuff. I appreciate you all. I hope to see some of you at the live events, 10th of May. Be announced hopefully next week, City Legends. And we'll also have one before that as well. We're just sorting out the last couple of things. If you want to be guaranteed access to tickets, you could become a member of Ace Podcast Nation, patreon.com/Ace Podcast Nation. You get, for a price of a bag of chips, you get exclusive content, exclusive member shows, behind the scenes stuff, And most importantly, you get 24 hours early access to tickets for all live events. I appreciate you all. Let's have a look. Any more questions? Lyndon says, how long is left on Rinamoto's contract? I'm not 100% sure. Is he one of the ones that's out of contract in the summer? I wonder. He might well be, you know, mate. That rings a bell now that you've said that. I will have a quick Google and just have a look. He needs to go. He's a massive waste of space. Came with so much hype. Yeah. Sam Reese makes a great point. He says, fans have to take some responsibility for the atmosphere. When was the last time we made an original chant? Yeah, mate. As I've said a couple of times throughout the past hour, I would really like the fans to create an atmosphere now between now and the end of the season, particularly at home, and just get behind the team. Like, I was so disappointed by how the atmosphere was versus Leeds, like one of our biggest rivals, and it was just so lackluster. And I get it, you know, everyone was very disappointed with the team selection, and it was negative, and the football and blah blah blah. But like, the fans have got to do their part and get behind the team. For me, that's just my opinion. But I grew up at Ninian Park, where, you know, the atmosphere was the atmosphere. Ethan says Colwell was brilliant on Boxing Day. Yeah, don't think he started a game since. Is what it is. Reese says the PowerPoints I was referring to, mate, was regarding signing players. Per said Morrison would create a PowerPoint when the club approached players. It convinced them to join us. Yeah, I'm not sure, mate. I will endeavour to find that out if that still happens. Did Darren say at the show that when he did the City Legends event, mate, did Darren say whether they still do it, or did he just say about Morrison doing it? But interesting. Guys, it's been a pleasure. We are here every single Wednesday, Cardiff City show without fail. Please do spread the word. Most importantly, youtube.com at Cardiff City World. Sign up, subscribe. We will be dropping 2-part Michael Chopra podcast when we launch that over the next week or so, maybe 2 weeks, depending on a few things. But it's coming. It's going to be the Cardiff City fan channel, Cardiff City content all the time, analysis, podcasts, interviews, and even more stuff, news, the rest of it, journalists, all sorts of stuff. Also got a podcast with Mark Bonner in the bank, ready and recorded. So lots of Cardiff City content. I'll be back tomorrow night for Roger Giggs and football. So if you want to talk more football generally, Premier League and FA Cup and the rest of it, then please do join us. I appreciate you. Sign up to be a member. Subscribe for free. Whatever you can do. Spread the word. See you tomorrow if you're here for Roger Giggs show. And see you next Wednesday for the Cardiff City show. Don't forget, Cardiff City versus Plymouth preview, Friday afternoon. Be good.